Rob Welsh co-wrote this book with Jonathan Scott. Speaking of Jonathan Scott, Jonathan was a 10-year veteran of the NFL. And guess which team he got drafted by and played for initially? The Detroit Lions. Rob Welsh, former U.S. Marine, and he's a minister as well with over 17 years experience in the financial industry. He's trained and mentored thousands of people on leadership, business, and personal growth. He and Jonathan, as friends and coworkers, got together to teach you how to go pro with your money. Well, tomorrow with the NFL Draft, super happy to talk to this guy. Mr. Rob Welsh is with us. How are you, man?
Fantastic, Joe. How are you?
Well, I'm good, but you're a guy who has been close to athletes and close to the draft. What's going through all these athletes' heads as they wait the draft tomorrow?
Probably let me get picked. Hope I'm not in the second day. Don't want to be undrafted, but also too is if they're expected to go in a higher round, money.
Yeah, because there's a big, when you say hopefully not the second day, Rob, not only is it more likely they'll make the team if they're on the first day, but also there's a significant drop in pay very quickly, isn't there?
There is. I think there's a guaranteed, I don't know the exact numbers currently, but if you're in the first round, it's the most at number one, and then it kind of trickles down. From the perspective of the second day, Jonathan had, so he was expected to go the first day, and then he tells it's probably one of the worst days of his life because all the family was there. They had all the food.
Oh, no.
Didn't get called. Goes to the second day.
What, is he on the phone then with his agent that whole day? Like, is he getting phone calls back and forth from team owners? How does that work if you're in the room?
Well, he's probably getting a calm down call. Don't worry about it, stuff like that. But the agent's work is typically when they're undrafted free agents. That's where really the work comes in.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what's going through these guys' head money-wise. You and Jonathan, based on this book, must believe that the stuff going through a draftee's head when it comes to money might be the wrong stuff. Am I wrong?
Potentially, yes. I would say you're what's happening is that if you look at the first chapter of the book and it has a W-2 paycheck in it, the reason that was there is because you want to educate young people, whether it's if you got an athlete or just an everyday person, you don't get to keep the whole check. There's a lot of participants in your check, right? They didn't work beside you. They didn't help you, but they're going to get a participation percentage on that check, right? And then you get your first check. And imagine you're playing in any league, right? You get your first check and you haven't been informed. You're like, wait a minute. Who's FICA? What the heck's going on?
I don't have a cousin FICA. What? Jonathan thought he was going to buy a Rolls Royce, he writes. He was sure that, hey, I'm going to make what? $370,000, he wrote. Seemed like he could afford a Rolls Royce. Turns out when he saw his paycheck, it was wrong. You, by the way, are referring to Steph Curry. And I actually wrote down these numbers, Rob, just so we'd have them. In 2017, in this graphic, he made only $34,682,550. Don't know what he would do without that last 550. But yeah. But then $3.5 million goes to an escrow account. You explained to me the other day that that's something that the NBA does to pay them a little bit later. Is that what that is?
Well, it's to protect the league. So if COVID happens, right, and somebody who's part of the NBA or an agent has a better perspective of it, but from the understanding I've got talking with NBA agents is that COVID happened, right, and they were able to not go under because they have this escrow. But also, too, is all of the players got that money back later on.
Which is fabulous because if some guys have left the league and everybody's career is pretty short in these leagues, they still have money coming in. But then of that $34 million plus, after that $3.5 million cut, $11.6 million goes to federal taxes, 11.6. And then 4.1 to city and state taxes. Nearly $1 million goes to his agent. I'm in the wrong business. And then I thought this line was funny, Rob. $18,000 goes to a 401k. Steph Curry, high five. Max funds is 401k, which for him is our average stacker, max fund in your 401k is a big deal. For him, it's an afterthought. But then he gets to add back some from earlier. He's got $750,000 of escrow, giving him just over $15 million of 35. He's got less than half of his paycheck, Rob. Like, you guys make a big point of it's not what you make, it's what you keep that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the thing is, too, is that you pay where you play. Steph happens to be in California. It's one of the highest state tax states all around. Imagine if you live in Texas, no state tax, right? Cost of living's a lot less. And then you go play there, but you got to pay there, right? And then states like New York have 4 different taxes, you know, federal, state, county, and city. So if you live there and you play there, you're hoping to play in a state that that doesn't have a state tax, right? It's
actually funny, Rob, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about our average stacker out there going to go pro, and I'm thinking, what does this mean to them? So, but number one, if we do a good job of negotiating a pay raise or negotiating our next contract, we often look at the bottom line. If we're really savvy, we look at the whole benefits package, right? But if we're super savvy, you're saying we even maybe look at what state we live in, because that can change the game for us financially as well.
100%, right? I mean, think about this, right? California, take the Bay Area, right? We moved to Dallas from the Bay Area 6 years ago. It's night and day as far as cost of living. Night and day. I mean, we came out here and we're like, that house is only $1 million? Are you kidding me? You know, I'm like, what? You know, San Jose, like, some parts of San Jose, you get one built in the 1950s, maybe refurbished, 1,200 square feet, going for 1.2, you know, and you come out here and it's like 5,000 square foot home, 1.2, you know, and you're looking at, it's a significant difference. Now, the cost of living is going up here just like it did in the Bay Area. You're starting to see all that happen. And again, it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
Yeah, I think that is huge. Jonathan makes a great point that it isn't about just this contract. He very quickly thinks it isn't what you make, it's what you keep. But it's also not about this contract, Rob. It's about the next contract. I think that also translates to the average person as well.
You have to think long term, right? If you're an athlete, for instance, right? For instance, you have to think in terms of a business, treating it like a business. If you're just, you know, somebody out there who has a career and you're working at a job, you have some limitations as to what you could do. But if you want to increase your pay, you have to increase your identity, and you're going to have to get into personal development. So you're never going to out earn, right, the owner. And the person who's making most of the money is the furthest away from the cash register. So depending where you live, all this goes into play with keeping more of your money, but also being smart with your money. Most people don't treat themselves as an expense. Like, the first thing to get paid out of your paycheck isn't to pay the bills, it's to pay Rob, right? So you keep more of that money, and then you got to know where to put it, obviously.
Well, in one place that he puts it, and I'm kind of surprised because the Detroit Lions, being a professional football team, have all of this developmental stuff that they do on the end. Jonathan doesn't even wait for them, Rob. He takes part of his paycheck and invests it also into his development. Talk for a second about some of the things that he did with his paycheck to make sure that he tried to get some more career longevity.
He was fortunate, right? So his dad played with Namath. Right. So he had a little guidance along the way, and so he kind of knew some path to take. Jonathan didn't make Tom Brady money, but he did make money. You know, he made multiple millions over his career, which obviously kept 40%. Right. But what he did is he saved his money. So he would he bought a house, invested into businesses, but he invested into himself. He's very clear on what his objectives were in empowering others. But some of the mistakes, if you ask me, were that he will tell you is that he didn't get the right counsel on those businesses. And he let a financial advisor put a third of his assets, liquidity, as a 20-something into an annuity, which he didn't have access to, and still charge a fee.
Yeah, let's talk about advisors, because both of you guys say in the book that having advisors around you is important, but you've got to remain the CEO, right? Tell me about the process of learning about money and really having the right advisors around you.
I wish I had known a long time ago. I wish I had somebody a long time ago teach me about money. But also too is what I think the book prefaces the best is what questions you should be asking. Most people don't know what questions to ask. And if you can understand the questions asked, whether it's how to pick an agent, chapter 5, right? Kind of gives you some guidance. It's not telling you what to do. It's going to give you some empowerment so you can be responsible for yourself and how you think. Most people make money, but they don't have any vision for their family, for their life, what they're trying to accomplish. So they just go day to day, day to day. Well, some of the questions or information you should probably know is, what is the advisor actually going to do with your money, right? I'm going to manage your money. What does that actually mean? And what's it going into? Oh, we'll take a look at your risk tolerance. We'll take a look at this, right? What's your goals? Okay, I want to be retired by so day, right? Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. I got a graph now. Here's some pictures. These will be EFTs. These will be stocks. These will be mutual funds. And then you go, okay. And then you don't even ask, like, what the heck are those? Or if you do ask them, nobody knows what 12B1 fees are, right? And everything, if you make a pancake from scratch, the baking powder without it, it's a flat jack. If you don't put sugar in it, it's pale white, right? I mean, I used to be a chef a long time ago back in the day.
I could tell. I was like, this has come from somewhere.
There's only one ingredient to a 401k, right? It's mutual funds. And typically advisors, I had securities licenses, right? So if somebody came to me and I put it in mutual funds based off of whatever, I look at it it's easy to teach, right? Look at the history, kind of, make your gut assumption based off of this. And then, how many times you look at it? I don't look at it every day. I don't have to. I can't control it. And also too is that if I want to today, Joe, somebody tells me market's crashing today, I call up the advisor, said I want out. I want to move this to cash. I don't want to lose any money. Too late. You can transact the trade, but it won't close until the end of the business day when the market's closed. That's something people should know.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you have to know enough to be in control of your own situation. I like that Jonathan, when he figured out what he wanted to do, that he started thinking about things like, he started thinking about things to replicate a paycheck, which, by the way, tells me, number one, the annuity is completely wrong, right? Because that's not going to give him a paycheck until, way the hell down the road after a ton of fees. But he starts thinking about a paycheck, and then he thinks about, well, maybe I need to know a little bit about real estate. Still need people around me, but I need to know. He is pretty obsessed with the fact that he knows his career is short, so he needs to make money, but he needs to make money forever. So he works on creating an engine. Part of that engine, though, Rob, is he talks about discipline. You two both talk about discipline. He needs discipline, of course, to reach the NFL. You needed discipline. As your time is, I don't think you get through the Marine Corps without having some discipline. You and my co-host, but is good money management truly about discipline, or can we find ways to make discipline matter a little less?
I think there's only so much you're going to do with the actual money sitting there, right? So the idea of being clear on what you want the money to do for you is going to be another thing. Revenue generating assets to replace the current income. But then you have to take a look at how will it sustain itself through an economic, kind of downfall, right? It's going into business. It's the same thing. But what can I do today to get that money to generate revenue and work for me like little soldiers, right? People pay money and spend money to survive. But then they go spend money for comfort, but they never have a delayed gratification to wait upon that until they invest this money into things that are going to produce money consistently, whether they show up to work or not. Then they can go into comfort.
Yeah, it's so important to have those assets first. You talk about two things we all need if we're going to be pro with our money. We need a budget and we need a personal financial statement. First of all, let's start with the budget. You're a basic way to set up a really workable budget, Rob, because a lot of people hate the B word.
Yeah, I think you want to take a look at, okay, here's how much money I got in my paycheck, right? Here's what's going to be coming in for the month. but we'll take a look at, okay, what expenses do I have to fixed expenses are going to have to be paid, whether it's rent, utilities, just everything, my car note, everything that has to get paid, right? Plus saving 10 to 20% of your money should be written down on that list, right? And by the end of the day, if you take the money coming in minus the money that's got to go out, right? Not any extravagancies, not takeout food, right? Your groceries needed to sustain yourself. And you take a look at money coming in minus money that's got to go out. And if I have a negative sign in front of it, that's not a good sign, right? And so creating a budget not only tells you, here's what we've got, but then also the budget on top of it tells us, okay, how much am I trying to save for what? And then you can start to take a look at, okay, I've got this money left over. How am I going to allocate this money? My son works for me. He's 27 years old. He understands money. He loves to save money. And just recently having a conversation, look, you're making more money, but you're not saving more money. And he's like, I can pay you all the money you want, right? I mean, you get the family legacy, you can do whatever, but you're not, I can pay you another $50,000 this year, but you're not going to save any of it. So what, you got to get that under control. I told him Mint.com it's free. I used it. It helps you set up budgets and it's free. I mean, but most people don't have a budget.
I like the ability on Mint or any of the other lookalikes that you can set up these barriers that I remember when I first began taking control of my money and I was setting up this was right after Mint came out. I get this text message while I'm sitting, I think it was literally at Olive Garden. So no shame, guys. I'm a super breadsticks guy. So I'm sitting there and we just paid the bill and I get this message from Mint telling me I'm over my food allocation, which was great. It's like this, you can't go pro, Rob, without data. It seems like you need as much data as you can get.
Mm-hmm. I found that people have limiting beliefs around money, right? And, if you go to Best Buy and the guy's trying to get you on, get finance, right? They don't have commissions, but I'm going to finance a TV. Nobody really understands what that implication is to go finance a TV or you finance a couch. Okay. Every time you're sitting on the couch, just go ching, ching. There's the bank just made money, right? Your Visa card just made money. To think of it in terms of like leveraging debt later on. Debt is not a bad debt if you can leverage it for the right reasons. However, budgeting is critical to get everything under control. But when you're talking about data, Mint, I remember getting the alerts. It's in the yellow, right? That you're this much away, right? But if you don't understand where your money goes, I mean, I remember back in 2000, whatever it was, in making millions, and then I look back and I was like, where'd all the money go? And that's the worst feeling in the world. Like, just where'd it go? And I wasn't really, you make money, you forget about budgeting and like, just okay. And then, but not being clear and not thinking too small, that was a catalyst to grow where we are today.
So how did a disciplined money guy like yourself and a former pro football player get together? How did you guys actually meet?
Great question. Well, I came to Dallas 6 years ago, and a business partner of mine that we connected out here to start moving together, and he ended up meeting Jonathan at the W. He's from here. So he met Jonathan at the W Hotel. There was a former, the NFL alumni event he had invited. And he wasn't like, he's very successful by all means. And, he wasn't trying to like, you get all these guys that play in the NFL and they're just kind of like fan struck or whatever. And they're all coming, Jonathan, blah, 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 asking just weird, what's your favorite team or this and this. And towards the end of the event, I get the story that Ken approached him and he's to say, hey man, what's up? And he's just expecting something different from Ken, business partner, Jonathan. And he tells him, no, man, how you doing? I'm from here. It's like, yeah. So he asked Ken, what do you do? He goes, I work with, people, athletes, keep more of their money in taxes. Well, a hot button for that athlete or former athlete is taxes. And Ken just happened. And what happened is they ended up having a conversation 7 hours long just in life. So he comes back to me the next day, man, you're going to meet this guy, Jonathan. So me and Jonathan, Ken, we get together, we're talking. And if you ever meet Jonathan, he's just a great guy and he has the presence about him, right? We're to say, man, what's your goal? What's your purpose? And he goes, empowering others. And I was like, man, this is like So what are you doing today, right? Like, what do you do? And we just connected, and he ended up becoming a business partner. So it was this whole path. But Ken wanted me to talk to him about money and kind of walk through. And Jonathan is he wants to learn, right? And I'm a patient guy, and I love teaching. And so we ended up connecting, pulled up his NFL accounts at one time, and he didn't know how they worked. He kind of like, I go, we go in there, and he found out you can't touch your 401k till you're 45. Well, could have used that money right now. That's what he was looking at, right? And I was just like, man, I was like, really? We tried every which way from Sunday. There's no way. And there's so many young guys, they're putting a ton of money in this thing, and they don't know they can't touch it until they're 45. And how many people in the NFL in particular get to play until they're 45 or even coach at that level?
That's the thing. It's funny because that is not so much a negative thing about the 401k. It's negative about the fact people don't know what they have, what they're saving into. Same thing, Rob, that you said earlier, which is you trust these people and they just go, oh, okay, you throw your money over here. And then you find out later you can't get at it. Like, I think every time I hear a story like this about Stephen Covey's, one of his 7 habits has that analogy about picking up the stick. You pick up one side, putting money in. Well, you got to think about how the hell am I going to get money out? That would drive me crazy if I have my money in a place that I'm going to need it before then and I can't get it out.
Well, I'll tell you, Silicon Valley, back in when we had the Great Recession, you have engineers and more engineers, right? I mean, it's Silicon Valley, and they were getting 50 cents on the dollar after everything, penalties, taxes, and then
just trying to get their cash.
Yeah, because here's the NFL is different. You can't even access it. You can't roll it out. You can't do anything like a regular job. But to not ask all the questions, right? And Jonathan was on this right now. He just hates the 401k, just so you know, right? So,
well, but my standpoint as a financial advisor to a lot of people is that is based on his point of view.
Yes.
That is based on his particular what he wanted and not knowing about all the facts before he got in it. Because I think the 401k is awesome. I think the 401k probably would have sucked ass for him. Would have been horrible for him. So I can see why.
Here's the thing. It's all about purpose, right? It's all about what am I trying to accomplish, right? And it's I have guys coming up to me back in I'm not in financial services, we're a private bank now, but
sure, yeah.
But I've educated a lot of people, and I voluntarily will educate people. It's like, good, bad, or ugly, it doesn't matter. It's like I used to have agents come up, hey, this guy's got 100,000. I was like, what's he trying to do with it? I mean, what's the purpose of the darn stuff? It's not about the money. It's about what's the purpose.
It's like our friend Roger Whitney, who's a retirement answer man. He's not far from you over in Fort Worth. He always says if an advisor leads with product and not purpose, you need to run. Run.
Oh, man. Hey, I heard it once from a mentor a long time ago. He said, relating to the medical field, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I want to end here with chapter 3. And our stackers, Rob, mostly work for somebody else, right? Like Jonathan working for the Lions and for other NFL teams. Here's a big quote from your book. Do I want to own a team or just play on a team? What does that mean?
So when you think of an NFL team in particular, right? Yeah, it's a night and day situation. They get percentages of the media. It's a players league, right? When you talk about the NFL, if you're not you're actually just a property. You're a commodity, right? To be traded on the open markets and sold and bought, and it's a commodity. It really is, right? And you're in a gladiator system, but the owner's making most of the money. So everything people. They're excited to play football. They're excited to be in the league. They're excited to get there, but they never think in terms of owning a league, owning a team, right? And if you were to think in terms of ownership versus using this money coming in right now, that will basically, I'm treating the NFL career as a business. This is Rob LLC, right? And treat it like a business. But would you rather be the owner of the team? Let's say the Cowboys, Jerry Jones. Would you rather be Jerry Jones or would you rather be Ezekiel Elliott? I don't know about you, but Ezekiel just and it was a money-driven thing, right? There's no loyalty coming down to the field. It's a loyalty, kind of trying to be on a team, stay on a team, but they're not. It's almost terrible to a thing. But here's the thing. You get a chance to do something, but there's not enough information, even at the young age prior to getting there, on how to think correctly, because they're trying to maintain a certain system and keep you in place.
This was such a powerful concept, and I wanted to end on that, Rob, because I think that realizing that it's brand you, that no matter who you work for, you are the business owner of your life, and thinking like a CFO or a CEO of your own life. I mean, when I look at Jonathan playing for a different team, he still throws money into his development. He gets burned, so he learns what type of assets he likes, which ones he doesn't. He starts thinking about setting up a paycheck for himself that's going to be sustaining. I mean, talk about a business mindset. That is phenomenal.
There's a really
go ahead.
good, before you get to that, just a couple of things, whether you put it on or not, but Joe Dispenza's got a lot of great stuff, right? You'll never out-earn your self-esteem, number one, right? And if you're just going to stay in an employee, then be the best you can, but grow in it. But personal development's everything, right? Joe Dispenza wrote a book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, right? I think Dr. Robert Anthony had a good book precursor to that. That is a smaller book, easier to understand, is the Beyond Positive Thinking. Both books' concept is removing those limited beliefs on what you deserve, right? And people's financial, emotional intelligence it has everything to do with everything, and how you grow your identity. People that there are certain things that people do in habit form that it doesn't cause them to go get to where they want to go. So they might look at the S580 that I got in there, and it's just a car, but it's a car that I like. I can afford it, that type of thing. But I got people that look at the car, nice car, and they'll never have one of those cars doing what they currently do, right? And people will go and finance something with trying to get it now. You have that, but the Banker's Code was a book that a guy wrote, George Anton, that I literally tell everybody to go get the book, because he talks about consumer, producer, which is a business person, and being the bank, and kind of changing your mind and changing your thinking. If y'all read a good book, it's a good book. They have a PDF on it, but the mindset, I just talked with a guy at church, and he's one of the leaders at the church, and I'm one of his mentors, and we just started talking, and he's asking me, he's trying to go full-time ministry. Man, I said, well, how much money is a money? And he goes, man, if I just had $1 million. I said, well, what'd you do with it? He goes, man, I wouldn't have to be like this. And everything was I, me, or mine. And I said, man, you think it way too small. I said, everything's about you. I was like, what about ministry? I mean, it's like, you're put so many limitations on how you think about money and what you're doing. I mean, I was like, and I sent him Joe Dispenza's thing, highlighted areas I had in it, right? And then I sent him something else, and he's read a few of the books, like he's followed direction. This dude blew up. Like, it really removed his thing. He came back. It's like, he goes, oh my gosh. He came back. He shows me yesterday at church. He's got a plan put together to do this and this now. And he's like, man, I was like, he wants to actually teach what I taught him because it benefited him.
Yeah. That's wow. The book is The Winning Playbook, Strategies for Life on and Off the Field. Rob, I'm assuming it's available everywhere.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's back on Amazon now. I sold out at one point. It was like, but it's free. It's free on Kindle right now too.
Oh, well, I got to tell you, I love the fact that this book's written for NFL players, and it's being eaten up by people like us. Like, I just think there's such an analogy here that you and Jonathan nail. I got to say, man, thank you for helping with the draft tomorrow. All of our Stacker Nation, wherever they got drafted, make the most of that paycheck. Now they're bringing it home. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Absolutely. Great to be with you.